we don't care that much.
Welcome, League fans, to the North American LCS and this Sunday lineup of games here in Los Angeles, California. We're already a few matches into the season, but we're just getting started as the LCS teams adjust to patch 6.11. As you can see, the audience very happy to be here. Lots of energy, and Immortals making their way into the studio, having a great start to their split so far. We'll see if they can hold it together. Their opponents this morning, TSM, also having a very impressive undefeated run so far in the early portions of the split here. Seraph and the rest of Team Envy getting ready, set up for their best-of-3 series today. They're going up against Phoenix 1. Gate here, as you see, supporting Slushie again today. They're still looking for their first match victory of the split. Thank you, everybody, for watching. As always, I'm James Dash Patterson, and joining me on the analysts today is Mark Zimmerman and Marcus Iris Hill. Welcome back, Marcus. I'm stuck with you once again, it seems.
Yeah, but it's always a 50-50 experience. I'm like happy to talk about League of Legends, but then I have to be here with you.
Here it is.
And it's just like, if only I could talk about League with you.
You can power through.
Yeah, I'll make it.
I'm here to help you.
Yeah, Iris,
You've got this.
My light in the darkness.
I like it. I like it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there are still 3 undefeated teams here in the North American LCS, but at least one of those teams will lose that honor because our Game 1 pits TSM up against Immortals. So, gentlemen, talking about these two teams, TSM first, undefeated so far in the split. How do we feel about this roster?
I think they're the most dominant of the 3-0 teams. They haven't dropped a game yet off of the fact that they're 3-0, so all their wins have been 2-0s, and they look extremely clean. Most of these games have not been close, and even if they're a little close in like 15-minute mark, they blow the game wide open and kind of stomp through.
I really thought the true test would be CLG, but against Immortals, maybe that'll be the true test because Immortals was already a really, really strong team, but kind of fumbled in the playoffs. So I'd like to see how they do against them in the playoff or in the real season.
Speaking of which, as we look at some clips of Immortals play, as always, Huni and Rainover getting in a lot of early game ganks, and that duo never ceases to amaze, it seems.
Yeah, they definitely ride the line between like crazy and calculated, where at any moment you think they're gonna like win the game instantly or lose it, and it's this amazing thing to watch because they're totally, play differently than anyone else.
All right, so then within this matchup, what do we think the key elements of it are? Is it going to revolve around the duo jungle top laners? Is it going to be more of a mid lane focused matchup between Bjergsen and Pobelter? Where do we see this series hinging?
I think one of the reasons why these teams are so strong is not only because of their individual play, but because of their team play. So we can't really be able to tell because they're all so very, very close. But in my opinion, probably between Double and Wild Turtle is going to be one of the things to look at.
I think that's probably one of the few mismatches you can say that Double Lift is a little bit stronger in lane. I think it's kind of draft dependent though, because we've seen now at TSM that they've gone to different places. We've seen them go mid, we've seen them go top, depending on their picks and what the other team has. So I think, it will kind of be comp dependent.
Now, and as always, Dyrus, you have a unique perspective on this matchup because being a former player for TSM, still involved with the organization, but teammate Wild Turtle now moved over to Immortals. Old rival in Double Lift now moving on to the roster. What's your take on the different individuals within this matchup?
So no matter what I'm going to say, people are going to think I'm kind of biased, but from the past, like one of the reasons why I hated CLG was because of Double Lift, and now he's on TSM, so I'm kind of forced to like him. So I'm like, whatever. Me and Turtle on TSM, like, regardless of what happened when I was on the team, like, me and him were, I don't know, I thought we were very close, and he's very hard to like not get along with. Like, he's the easiest person in the world to get along with. We have similar tastes, we play similar video games. Like, they're both very, very good players, so I don't have any
tugging at your heartstrings, really.
He wants TSM to win, but to Double Lift to go 0-10. That's what he said.
Getting dragged across the finish line by the rest of TSM.
Exactly.
I mean, I'd be happy with either one winning, but if I had to choose, like, I'd probably choose Turtle.
Okay.
But for teams, I would choose TSM.
What we want is good games above all else.
Of
Am
course,
I right?
yeah,
Am I right?
of
All right. Well, our
course.
third undefeated club, Envy, is taking on a winless Phoenix 1 today, which really tells a story about this Envy team because, yes, they haven't lost a match yet this split. Their strength of schedule so far, however, it makes it really tough to tell whether or not this team is in the same class as TSM and Immortals.
I think a lot of people are looking at this series expecting a win out of Envy. They've shown that they are a very cohesive unit. They always seem to play the mid and late game portions extremely well. They tend to have a longer game time, and that kind of accentuates those strengths where they're always performing these late game shot calling situations. But they haven't really gone against one most people would consider top 4 teams yet. Early in the season, you might have thought so, but we've seen TL struggling, and that ended up being an easy match for them. So I think, looking forward a little bit past this weekend, we want to see how they perform against those really talented and mechanical teams that they haven't seemed to have played against yet.
And of course, something that's very intriguing to me about this Envy lineup is that most of the, if not all of the players, seem to have a relatively deep champion pool, very flexible in pick and ban. And so when it comes to identifying strengths and weaknesses of their opponents, they seem very capable of throwing very targeted bans and picking specifically against whatever lineup they're playing to.
I think the real test will be when they play against the very, very top.
Yeah, so the likes of Immortals, TSM, CLG, and Cloud9, who are their opponents over the next 2 weeks. That is an insane. You go from, maybe you're undefeated
Boys
coming
to men
after,
right there.
right?
Yeah.
So, there's still some time to determine whether or not this Envy lineup is going to make a run for that top echelon of teams. But speaking of individual contributions, last night we saw a man who got his share of early split criticism go absolutely nuts in a pretty unique pick. Quas on Alawi. I mean, it was just a ton of fun to watch above all else, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was just the kind of thing where most people haven't seen it played at a high level yet, and you start seeing it in these team situations where people are grouped up, they're getting like the test of spirit, test of will, and then just like they don't know to get away from the vessel, and then he's killing people just being near them, and it's just crazy to watch.
Like I've said before, I think she's a very underrated and hidden OP, because what happens is her E, the little spirit grabbing thing, when you grab someone from full HP and your team hits it, they're instantly to half.
Right.
And they have like the Q.
It's an interesting
passive.
kind of poke because your entire team can become involved, right? Like, so even a champion who wouldn't normally be able to poke kind of gets to do it through Alawi.
Yeah, and I think you'll start seeing teams kind of play around that maybe where when someone's spirit gets grabbed, instead of everyone running around like, oh, what do we do now? Maybe they engage, and then they force a fight. And so you kind of are not exactly sure how Alawi's going to function in like the really high levels of play yet, because we've only seen one person really break it out.
Right, exactly.
I think the biggest thing about Alawi is picking mobility around here, because like you said, if they go in, she's getting more targets to ult, but if they run away, then they're running away with half their HP.
Right, lots of Sivers, lots of Karmas perhaps to counter the Alawi, but it's going to be very interesting to see how teams adapt to her very unique playstyle and mechanics. Now that we've got a few of our series under our belts, these types of individual contributions are starting to come forward, and we're seeing some real standout performances, and specifically we'll look at damage per minute leaders here. Something to take note of, this entire list is mids and ADCs barring Hanser sitting in that number 3 slot.
Right, that's kind of crazy when you think about it. I mean, you expect 80 carries in mids, that makes sense. They're playing a lot of the highest damage champions. They farm up a lot, they never get denied the way a top laner can in the 2v1. But then you just see Hanser's there, not only on the list, but third.
Right.
It's just crazy. He's above double lift of all things, too. It's really surprising.
I mean, of course, we do have to caveat that, damage per minute is a stat that can get inflated with game time. So it's not, we can't put all of our eggs in that basket and say, well, because he's at the top of that list, he's by far and away the best top laner. But it definitely speaks to his performance so far, the split Iris.
Yeah, he's a god. But besides the champions and the gameplay styles for each team, it really depends on not only the champion, but how they funnel in gold and fight around. For example, like TSM has been winning, so Bjerg and Hanser has been on top. Double probably should be up there, but maybe they play a little bit less around him. And at the same time, Hanser just plays extremely well, so he can put out all that damage. So whether you're playing like Fiora or Echo or Maokai or even a Swain, like it really, really depends how much you're fighting.
And just to touch on that quickly, I mean, the thing that's interesting is we're saying, game time might matter, champ pool might matter. Yes, Hanser's playing a lot of these kind of carry-focused things, but so are a lot of other tops, like Huni.
Huni in this matchup against him, right? If we look down the list, as you just mentioned, Echoes, Rivens, and Aurelius are the only 3 champions that Huni has played.
Not necessarily low damage.
No, not at all.
So that's why it's really surprising to me, is because TSM wins quick. They're not having these extended games where there's a ton of team fights and your damage kind of goes up. And he's playing carries, but so are a lot of other people. So
yeah, it does kind of maybe speak to then what Doublelift was saying on the desk when I had him here about how this TSM lineup, one of their focuses coming into this split was that they weren't going to be afraid to fight. They weren't going to be afraid to be more aggressive, whereas in the past we've seen a more calculated TSM kind of playing that map movement. Here they're saying we'll take those fights and we're confident in them, so the damage is coming out. Another thing to note, nowhere in that top 10 are any members of Phoenix One, Envy, Echo Fox, or Apex. The one that strikes me as the most odd there is the fact that no one on Envy is up there, an undefeated team, right? One of our top teams, so a team that's winning quite often. So how does that must speak to the fact that they are less willing to jump into a team fight. They're a more slow-paced, calculated team.
Right. I think that's kind of what we were saying is that they make their money through these big team decisions, and they don't do them all the time. They're not Immortals rushing in there fighting. They'll pick their spots and they'll be really decisive in them. Seraph has a great mind for engaging, and so it's very open and shut. It's close game. We win a big fight, I think, and so you don't have as many opportunities to inflate your damage numbers that way.
I think calling them a slower team might be because their lack of experience. Because if, let's say you're playing against SKT, right? Yeah. You give up a slight lead, they're just going to mow you down for the rest of the game. I think it's more about the levels of these teams more than about their play. So if you give up a little, they're just going to rush through and they're going to win. But if you give up a little against the lower teams, you kind of have a little bit more room, and they're going to take it slower just so they can guarantee their victory. Not that saying that they're that much worse, but they're going to take every step necessary to win the game.
Yeah, they're cautiously moving forward, making sure they don't throw, and that is to be expected with younger and newer teams. Now, though, let's check out how our teams are stacked up heading into today's matches. Up at the top, we've got TSM, Immortals, and Team Envy. Alone in 4th is Cloud9, with Apex just behind them in 5th. Tied for 6th is Echo Fox and CLG. Energy Esports notched up a bit in the standings, picking up their first series win last night, giving them a lead over our 2 last-place teams in Phoenix One and Liquid. Then turning to today's matchups, we'll kick things off in the Battle Arena on NALCS 1 with TSM taking on Immortals. After that, Echo Fox will go up against Liquid. And in the Battle Theater on NALCS 2, newcomers face off with Team Envy versus Phoenix One, followed by the old guard, Counter Logic Gaming versus Cloud9. Now, just a reminder that we're lucky to be joined by 2 guest analysts, each with a wealth of game knowledge to drop on us here at the desk. So we'd like to invite you to send your questions to us at LOL Esports using the hashtag NALCS, and we'll be looking through your meta questions, item build puzzles, and game knowledge queries, and we'll select a couple for Mark and Dyrus to tackle on air. And while you're on Twitter, don't forget to also call out your hypest moments from today's games using the hashtag LCS Big Plays. We're looking forward to seeing all of your questions and favorite moments later in the broadcast. That's going to wrap it up at the analyst desk, so let's send it over to our casters to get our games underway.
Thanks, Dash, and welcome to the Battle Arena, League fans. I'm Julian Pacey Timecar. Joining me on the cast is analyst extraordinaire Isaac Azael Cummings-Bentley.
I got an upgrade. Yesterday I didn't even get a steamed, only Kobe got it. Today I'm extraordinary. Feels good, man.
Certainly does. And we've got our first match of the day coming right up, and it's between 2 powerhouse teams. TSM will be taking on Immortals. This marks the first time these teams have faced off since TSM knocked out Immortals in the spring playoff semifinals 3-0.
Yeah, both teams have been very motivated by disappointing finishes in the playoffs. Immortals, everyone was expecting to win last split. They placed 3rd, TSM falling just short against CLG, who then went on to that great MSI run. So both teams have a lot to prove this time around, and pretty excited to see how this game is going to go. But specifically, you have to always be looking at the mid lane when you're talking about TSM. Bjergsen has been on a rampage this season. There's always a lot of focus around him. How is that matchup going to go for Pobelter?
Well, Pobelter's definitely had it every now and then, but another lane to watch will be that top lane, of course. Last split, Huni set himself as the best top laner, but this split, Haunter is playing hard to steal Huni's crown.
I mean, 2 of the very best this split so far. These guys have been absolutely crushing it. Huni has been playing all kinds of aggressive top lane picks. Haunter has been carrying on everything from tank champions to carry champions as well. We saw he was the highest damage per minute top laner in the league by far. And TSM also, by the way, has the fastest games in the league. So that is a stat that can get inflated by game time. He has not had that advantage, and pretty exciting stuff.
Certainly is, and as we mentioned, this is a matchup with some history, but Biofrost says this is a different Immortals than the team they faced last split.
Immortals is definitely a very strong team. You know, they had a very good regular split last season. Of course, TSM did 3-0 them in the playoffs, but this is a completely different meta, and a lot of picks are changed, and TSM has a new roster, so it'll be interesting to see how the match plays.
TSM does have a new roster. And I heard this
He's on
guy
it.
called BioFrost on it. Yeah, he might know a thing or two.
I love the third person perspective he's putting in. Maybe not quite adjusted to the team yet. With that, though, let's check out the starting lineups. First up, it will be TSM. And what a team they have been. A crowd favorite, as always. In the top lane, it's Haunter, their jungler, Spenskaren. Mid lane extraordinaire, Bjergsen. AD carry, Doublelift. New support, BioFrost. And Coach Path, making sure they're all in order.
And their opponents today are going to be Immortals. In the top lane, we have Huni. Their jungler will be Rainover. The mid laner will be Pobelter. And the bot lane duo is going to be Wild Turtle and Adrian, with Coach Dylan helping him out with the draft.
And we talked about some of the matchups already. Mid lane is an obvious point to look at here, but there's so much that's exciting about these two teams. They're both undefeated. Yes, TSM's record is slightly better, which I'm sure the TSM fans will remind the Immortals fans fairly often. But other than that, every single player on this team can do absolutely crazy things. It's kind of a new patch. We've had 2 major shifts starting the LCS off this summer. So much to look for here in game number 1, especially with the champions that have just seemingly coming out of nowhere, changing the metagame.
Yeah, it's very exciting, and I think one of the guys who has always played so many different champions is Bjergsen. He's so versatile, and you know, if there's anyone to bring out some of these, you know, updated mages that we haven't yet seen, you know, like Vel'Koz, who's performing really well in 6-11, it would be a guy like Bjergsen who has brought that out in the past. He shows a lot of flexibility. Excited to see if we're going to get any new picks today.
Well, despite 6-11, I think the teams are sort of more slowly adjusting, which makes sense. But we'll see what happens here in the draft for game number 1. TSM will hang out on the blue side here for our first one. Immortals over on the red. And already starting to see some changes. A first ban Zyra for TSM, followed by the first ban Rise from Immortals.
Yeah, Adrian has been playing that Zyra. It is quickly emerging as the S-tier support right now. A fantastic laning phase, great poke. It scales very well into the mid and late game, has fantastic wave clear for when the bot lane duel inevitably roams to mid. Some more bans being taken away here, though.
Yep.
A lot of focus on Bjergsen, kind of as expected. Rise taken off the table, Azir as well. Bjergsen is a monster on those champions. I definitely do not want to give that up. And I like the TF takeaway here from Pobelter. He's a guy who's shown a lot of flexibility with this champion. And because of the way that they like to play a lot around side lanes, Pobelter is a guy who's helping out the side lanes. What champion better to do that on than TF?
Yep, and I like it. There's a TF ban, and what to say, all right, fine, have an Azir ban.
Yeah.
As they take away the Nidalee actually from Rainover, so that jungler still being banned. Swen will be the last one here. We'll see what TSM want for pick number 1.
Yeah, and I think the Swain obviously, you know, could be another Bjergsen special, but Haunter can play this as well. It has been in the top lane a fair bit, definitely very strong. And with Nidalee taken off the table, Kindred is available. You know, Kindred traditionally was kind of the tit for tat ban that people were taking off once Nidalee would get taken out, but Kindred being left up here hasn't had nearly as much success, I think, you know, in this updated patch as it has in the past. Especially in competitive play, it's a lot harder to pick up all the bounties, which now give you, the added damage on your Q that had been taken away. So it's definitely a lot weaker in the early game, and Rek'Sai is going to be your first pick.
Actually interesting to see TSM clearly consider Kindred.
Yeah.
Maybe showing that, hey, we know you can play this. Take it if you want. We'll take the Rek'Sai instead, which is arguably the best jungler to take on this patch, given that both Nidalee and Kindred were sort of altered. Immortals, though, you never really know what's going to happen. I expect the first few picks to be safe, but watch these two teams as the series goes on, because these drafts could get wacky. And I wouldn't even fault Huni for playing that. He might just want to. He might just feel like it today, but instead he feels like Aurelia, and there's karma for Adrian as well.
Aurelia is beastly in the top lane with the new Triforce buffs. Has been absolutely crushing. A great champion there for Huni, who had his own adaptation on the build. He was going with the Frozen Mallet basically every game. A little bit of mixed results against Energy when he was playing that, but definitely very, very strong on the champion. Karma as well is probably, that pick right below Zyra as far as supports go. Gives you the speed up. It's kind of the same principle as the Sivir. You have the AoE speed up, you have strong laning, so you can afford to pick ADCs with a weaker laning phase. If Turtle wants to play something like Twitch or something that's more of a heavy scaling champion, this can put a band-aid on it. And if you want to go early game, well, all of a sudden your support is going to be smashing them right with you.
Yep, and TSM, they actually go for Lucian and Vladimir. So Vlad, one of the big picks here on this patch, and both last week as well.
Yep.
But Doublelift, sort of along with Piglet, has been one of the AD carry plays that's still holding on to Lucian as a pick that they really like to play. Most of the other ADs have actually stopped playing Lucian entirely on this patch.
Yeah, Lucian, the range on the Q pass-through is lower. The W range is lower. Q damage is also lower, I do believe. So, some pretty heavy nerfs, but we talk a lot about Doublelift and how fantastic his laning phase is. This is still a monster champion, in that 2v2. Doublelift loves to match up in that and try to smash his opponents. So, if you can get ahead on the Lucian, you can definitely still snowball. You can definitely still become very, very strong in the mid and late game.
Well, pretty predictable stuff here from Immortals, perhaps, as we're going to have a look at Sivir to pairing with that Karma, particularly with Zyra banned away. I do like this from Immortals, and Graves, actually, with a jungler of choice for Reignover. So not going to that standard, I'm going to say this lightly, counter pick of Olaf, which he usually likes to play into Rek'Sai.
Yeah, he's fantastic at the Olaf. Definitely feeling like they maybe want a little bit higher damage this time around. I think it's a pretty intelligent pick. When you are matching up against something like the Vladimir, you want to be able to have enough damage to chunk him out, to take him down very, very quickly. You cannot play, slow champions and let him kind of hang around. So, a lot of physical damage coming out. We'll see what the last pick is going to be from Immortals, but they are definitely indexed very heavily towards AD, which can be a concern depending on what their last pick is going to be.
Sounds like Pobelter's on victory duty. That's what that sounds like.
It could be, yeah.
Well, TSM, they'll have to finish their draft, so with 10 seconds left, we'll see what they take.
It could also be the Anivia. Anivia has been kind of that counter pick for Vladimir. We'll see if Pobelter wants to opt into that. But the last two picks here for TSM, Trundle and Nami.
I like it. Nami, one of those other range supports. Good call on the Anivia, because they insta-lock it as soon as the draft passes back to them, and now we're finished with the team comms.
Yeah, and these guys obviously are indexing pretty heavily towards lanes. You can see TSM picking Trundle into the Aurelia. Trundle is a fantastic 1v1 matchup against basically everything. We do also see, when you're locking into Lucian, you want to be able to go aggressive in lane, give yourself some help with that. The Nami is a fantastic laner. We even see the exhaust is not taken right now by Biofrost. He may decide to swap this up, but Nami is so strong in the 2v2. It gives you a lot of sustain. You have a lot of poke. You're able to enable Lucian to go aggressive with your E. It gets a little bit of bonus magic damage, the slows as well. So it's going to be a pretty explosive 2v2 lane if we do get it. Very excited to see if that's going to happen.
And unsurprisingly, these two teams with excellent drafts to kick off game number one, starting to get a few of the trends in the metagame as the teams and players work through the patch.
Yeah.
The coaches will shake hands, should be very proud, given that we are going to have a very nice start to game one. Sort of standard, but very exciting to see how these two teams square off in our first one.
Yeah, I can't wait. I think that as far as drafts go, the two are very even. One thing, Trundle's not going to have that super tank to kind of ult and steal all the stats from. So, much more of a kind of aggressive lineup from Immortals.
Well, we've seen aggression certainly from both these teams. As the players load onto the Rift, so tweet hashtag TSM win or hashtag IMT win to @LOL Esports and let us know who you think is going to come away with a victory. As always, these two teams have very vocal fans. It's great to have you all here joining us in the battle arena.
I love it.
Let's play some League of Legends. It's time for game number one, TSM versus Immortals.
We already got the chance. You knew they were coming, and here it goes. I cannot wait. I'm really hoping we do get to have the lane matchups of top lane versus top lane, bot lane versus bot lane. I want to see these guys duke it out. Huni and Hanser have been two of the very best top laners this split, and both the bot lane duos are incredible. So far, we do have that kind of line of scrimmage setup. Both teams are spotting each other out, and we'll see if they're going to be willing to opt into this because, everyone has the information that they do need to get those lane assignments.
Well, it's one of those things that's almost like, hey, maybe for game one we get standard lanes. Bit of battle early, though. Haunter getting a better end of that early trade. Gets the ward. Yeah. Oh!
No. I don't know if he canceled that or if he lost vision as he was swinging.
Yeah.
But usually when you are swinging, the animation will finish even if the ward goes away. So I think he might have double-clicked. He might have mashed it for it. Unlucky.
Unlucky indeed. As Bjergsen hits a bit of poke there from Adrian. Haunter, though, not too miffed about the ward kill or lack thereof. Just having a dance next to Svenskeren, as we do see Wild Turtle and Adrian making their way to that top side of the map. So
yeah, they're opting out of this 2v2. And that is something, Dyrus and the guys at the desk kind of talked about. is the strength of Double Lift in the 2v2. Picking Lucian plus the Nami, and it's not going to be something that Adrian and Wild Turtle want to actually match up into. So we are going to have lane swaps, and early on, we're going to have the invade from both the duos, trying to spot each other's junglers out, see if they can delay them, see if they can harass them, and
Ooh, deep invade actually here. Adrian looking for something.
Spen's
It's also
actually in
Spen's
trouble.
Karen. Big damage there on the early stages, and the wolf goes away. Sven does smite it. Haunter still turning it around, but Sven awfully low. Adrian still getting chased down though. They're battling for this last wolf. Who's gonna get it? Looks like it might be Haunter. Wild Turtle wants it. Adrian steals it away.
wow, that is a really big invade for Immortals. They actually, not only do they steal both the little camps away, they actually force Svenskeren to base at level 1, so he's super delayed. Look on the other side of the map. Rainover and Huni were not slowed down really at all. I mean, they got pushed off the Gromp. They couldn't, it's not like they can do a full jungle clear, but they're both very healthy. Rainover's already level 2, clearing up his buff, and Sven's going to be in this rough situation where Haunter has to go to lane. He has to help push the turret now. So this is a solo clear that's going to have to be done by a level 1 Rek'Sai. TSM already a little bit behind on this. We'll see if Rainover can extend the lead and kind of get up in Svenskeren's face.
Yeah, well, Sven doing those crux. Rainover doing his on the other side of the map as Immortals are going to start this standard push. Sven finally hits level 2, but is pretty significantly behind Rainover. About a level in XP so far. As we'll see what Sven decides to do now. He's pinging that strong side of the map. Looks like he's going to go over to the blue buff area, which makes sense, but we are going to get at least a very standard start to this game. 2 different 3v0 pushes, and these towers should fall very quickly. These teams are absolutely practiced at this point.
Yeah, they definitely are. 2 of the very best teams. Immortals always praise for their macro play. I think it really is their strength. TSM definitely a great macro team as well. But to me, they've always been more about the individual skill than they have just the strength of their macro game.
Well, you can see both teams actually pushing pretty far forward. Turtle took some damage to try and pull that wave off a bit. Looks like Huni going to stick around for the gold. Everyone's going to, I think, collect some of it maybe. We'll see how long Immortals want to stay on this side, because TSM actually took the turret a little faster. Huni, though, as almost always, will get the bounce and the local gold from the tower.
Yeah, and not like Svenskeren's completely out of this game, and that
Yep.
you can look at the massive amount of CS difference, but still, it is a really good edge for Rainover. 17 CS, 18 CS to 5 right now, so he is significantly ahead and should be able to maintain that lead. Rainover is always a guy who's super aggressive. Everyone praises him for his map movement, for his control, and when you're gifted this nice of an early game lead as a jungler, you can often really extend it and make it a pain for your opponent.
Well, looks like we have swaps back, although we're going to have some more tower pushing by the looks of things. Double Lift currently up in the top side all by his lonesome, but Bifrost going to go ahead and join him. Turtle, though, heading down to that bottom side, will push Haunter off that wave in the bot lane.
Yeah.
And we should have some more turret trading here.
Haunter, though, did actually pick up a fair bit of that CS. It's all going to be crashed into the turret, and they are probably going to lose this eventually. They're going to go for their own turret trade. But nice job by Haunter, kind of sneaking down, picking up some farm, getting that extra experience. So that is a good little edge for him. And meanwhile, this is supposed to be the Anivia counter matchup, and Bjergsen is kind of pushing Pobelter around pretty well here in the mid lane and not actually really playing afraid. I think it will pick up a lot for Pobelter once he does hit 6, as you can get those kind of ER trades where you just get the proc very quickly from that. But for now, we are seeing Bjergsen do very well, and he's going to be able to make his way up to probably an early cowl and start ignoring a lot of Pobelter's damage.
Yeah, starting to see a bit more of this matchup, so definitely curious to track it as we move through, but Immortals going to be busy with this turret now. 3v0 pushing. Adrian actually cancelled Haunter's recall, which is kind of rude, but Haunter will just waddle back to that top half of the map and keep pushing with his team. TSM might be a little behind on this push, but it shouldn't affect him too much. And again, we have a very standard start to this game. We'll be curious to see what happens once the lanes open up, as Immortals are going to claim that turret. Huni's sharing a bit of the gold this time. How very generous.
Yeah, he is going to share that over. I'm sure he wasn't. It wasn't
Nope.
his idea. He's like, come on, guys, get out of there. But it is going to be split up. And now we will likely have the teams starting to meet up. This turret top lane actually wasn't taken out by TSM, who is actually trying to rotate down. And I think they want to stop this dragon as they have sniffed it out. And they're all moving down here. Svenskeren has arrived. Bjergsen is here. Immortals is going to get pushed off of this. But, good job by TSM. But if they can't take the top turret, it is advantage Immortals because they've already taken down 2.
Adrian, cancels the recall, running away.
He could be in trouble
find
here.
him, slows that.
This is
Queues
gonna be
up
first
for
blood.
Double Lift to first blood. Does go to double. Not done, Huni. Oh, we are done. teleports to safety.
And Adrian, wrong place, wrong time. Pretty greedy spot to back. Should have walked out with the rest of the squad. Does not, hangs around, gets punished. Thank you very much, says Doublelift, as he is going to pick up a very easy first blood. And look at the CS advantage extending already over Wild Turtle. It's not the situation Turtle was hoping for, as they are now going to have to, move into that 2v2 lane. And this Lucian is going to be big.
Look at this top side of the map. You mentioned it already. Tower not down yet, but Haunter, decent little wave pushing in. Might be able to take it now, although does have 2 members of Immortals there. Huni actually just joining in, and Haunter will have to give that up. He's 2 levels ahead. And a decent amount of CS as well, but Haunter knows it's not safe without vision of the jungler.
Exactly. Doesn't know where Rainover is, doesn't want to risk it, and they will be able to eventually pick up that turret, so it's not the end of the world, as it is fairly low. But Huni is going to try to fend off Haunter. Not going to be able to do it, though. Haunter should be able to take out this pink ward, no problem. And now we see the first buy from Doublelift, result of that first blood. He grabs himself a serrated Dirk.
Yeah, I don't know if Huni wants this,
trouble.
though. Haunter actually just going in. He's 5-3 right now. Little low on mana. Doesn't flash it for the auto. And he gets the solo kill.
And he gets out scot-free, and Huni just did not want to blow his flash there, was trying to be very greedy. And he's going to get punished big time.
Yeah, Sven and Rainover now fighting in the jungle. Rainover's level 6, but Sven wins the early trade. Good coverage here on the top side to make sure Haunter gets away. And Rainover, this is dangerous.
It is dangerous. Sven took that red buff, which is massive in these early fights. Rainover should be okay to hold this off, though, as Haunter has to base, unless they're trying to do anything crazy. TP back for a dive, I don't think so. But Haunter is going to have a massive advantage over Huni here, and Huni just disrespected his opponent, and he gets smashed for it. And look at that first buy, Tiamat already.
Oof.
It's going to be a rough 1v1 there. And here we have it, Huni sticking around, did not want to give up the pink ward, and Haunter says, you can protect that, but you can't protect yourself. Huni's still holding onto the flash, does get the equilibrium strike under the turret, but the Q was already queued up. It does land, and he gets himself a nice, easy solo kill. Nice
Play there from Haunter. We'll see where he goes now. He's actually heading bottom side. Going to try and clear that out, although I think TSM are doing the dragon, as the Wild Turtle and Huni actually pushing the top tower. Starting to see a bit of a trend as far as objective trades go. TSM will get the Infernal Drake for their trouble, but Immortals might get a tower out of the deal.
Yeah, Immortals does not want to fight right now. They are basically just on the run. They are trying to avoid TSM at all costs. Turtle has no interest in laning against Doublelift right now, and Huni now says, get me out of here. I don't want to lane against this Trundle. So they're going to go for the trade. Looks like they can push down this turret, and they are going to have a 2-turret early advantage here. Pretty nice job there by Immortals, making the best of a bad situation. TSM, though, does pick up the Infernal Dragon, which is going to be big later.
Yep, curious to see when that top tower falls down. You said it before, it's sort of like it will likely go down eventually. So expected value on the turret pretty high, but they will have to get it. And even then, there's still a turret behind. So interesting objective trades early on as we check back in with the mid lane. Bjergsen actually hanging out with a 20 CS lead over Pobelta with the Vladimir. Spirit Visage almost completed, but Pobelta just building up those early mana items, so nothing out of the ordinary just yet here in the mid lane.
Haunter pushing up pretty aggressively, getting a little chip on that turret. Gonna have to back off, though, as he knows Immortals had based, and they're gonna be arriving as a squad. Doing a good job for himself, though. It was a bit over a level, like a level and a half up on Huni, which is pretty huge and a nice matchup for him. Sven Skaren has really evened things out as far as the jungle matchup goes, catching up pretty nicely in the CS. And mid lane, Bjergsen is extending a pretty big lead for himself, honestly, up 23S in 3 CS in what is supposed to be a great matchup for him. So looking like Pobelta is having a bit of a tough time, and as Bjergsen picks up that Spirit Visage, it's just going to get even harder.
Yeah, and it feels like sort of the expected early game here for TSM. 3 solo laners all currently winning in CS, although Huni is doing a nice job catching up after the early lane swap trades. Immortals, those strong macro game as ever. So 11 minutes in and a very even game. Gold reflecting that, as well as Haunter fancies himself as a bit of a jungler, taking away that Scuttle Crab, but he knows he needs to buy time and wait for Huni to push that wave back towards him.
This is honestly one of the very best things about Immortals, and I think it's what makes them a great team, is that regardless of what's happening, okay, we lost some kills here, we got first blooded there, that's fine. We're going to pick up objectives. They're always on the ball with trading turrets, getting the most out of bad situations, and because of that, they're rarely ever in extreme disadvantages. They may be behind in kills, but they're usually right in there as far as gold.
And now TSM taking
Scared may want to dive here.
Yeah, Sven does want to dive. Turtle in trouble. Does spell shield with the knockup there or flash, but still gets stunned on the back end. Teleport in though, TSM now caught out between two turrets. Huni looking for a kill, double, takes out Turtle, and now Huni has to flash out of the way. Gets himself exhausted, but TSM are gonna flash in for it! Fitzgerald, so aggressive, claims the kill.
Huge plays by TSM, and they are looking to crack open another turret, and they could actually, you know, move mid lane and potentially go for a dive on Povelta or go for that turret as well, because it's a 5-man squad up here for TSM. They are pinging the Rift Herald, though. They want to extend the lead for Hauntzer.
And we talked about it, TSM's almost newfound aggression. They know exactly what to do around the map, but they're not just waiting for it to happen. They are taking every advantage they see. Huge tower dive in the top lane, plus maybe the Rift Herald as well. TSM up almost 2,500 gold.
That's huge. And Double is getting so aggressive, not punished for it. Now has a completed Ghost Blade over Turtle, who is falling very behind, and Turtle is looking like he's going to be in a world of trouble if they ever do have to match up. Double Lift going big, and Sven Skaren with a nice path to that top lane. Played the dive really well, waits for the spell shield, pokes it off with his Q, then gets the knock up. So pretty much a flawless dive here. And we can see it started off. There's a spell shield, waits for it, pops him up, and look at Double Lift getting in there. They know exactly the limits of their team. Huni's already coming in. Double Lift finishes off the kill very intelligently. Had they retreated, could have got stunned up and maybe chased down, but a really great rotation as well from Bjergsen. He was up there first. Didn't need to get involved, but good stuff.
He did my favorite mid lane TP, which is where you take Ghost and you run up there as fast as possible. So with that new load cooldown, plus the Ionian boots of Lucidity.
Got those Lucidity boots.
Able to get up there nice and swiftly. Infernal Drake number 2 up in a minute 50. TSM looking to maybe start really snowballing this game away. And that top lane, which is the most even one so far as the CS goes. Huni, yes, up in CS by a bit, but Haunter getting that Rift Herald. Feels like all three solo lanes are starting to tip in favor of TSM.
It is pretty even as far as CS goes, but he has the solo kill. He has the Rift Herald. He is quite a bit ahead for sure. Rainover always, you know, doing his best to stay relevant, farming it up. He hasn't gotten involved really in any kills yet, but because his farm is so high, he's going to be a solid contributor regardless.
Yep, I like the Berserker Graves as well. Just a bit of extra damage there for the Graves.
Yeah, not really any CC he has to worry about. Because Swifty boots have been nerfed a lot of times, people are finally starting to shy away from them a little bit more. I like the Berserker Greaves, definitely going to help out, and it's looking like he may be building towards actually, you know, a Black Cleaver has parts of that. Could be a Sterix or something as well. I think Black Cleaver would make a lot of sense with all the physical damage, but...
Base check from Rainover almost, but Anivia's going to cover. Rainover gets chunked about 30% HP. TSM just trying to play aggressive with the Drake coming up, making sure they have control of the right-hand side of the map.
It's a really tough position for Immortals because there's actually no winning matchup for them right now. And, you know, Huni's not in a position where you can just outplay Trundle, right? Trundle is just going to straight up outstat you if you go in on him.
Oh my god.
Bjergsen does not care about that damage.
Big damage. That's a Spirit Visage Blood.
Yeah.
Just chunking out the Anivia. TSM looking to really continue their dominance of this bottom side. And Huni's top with no TP. That's pretty much Immortals saying, you know what? Take the Infernal Drake. You get this one.
They know they can't actually contest for it. They're weaker in every position. Huni is just going to try to split push it out, try to pick up some farm, and hope that he can get himself into a position where he can eventually 1v1. But it's going to be really tough as Trundle, that's his specialty. He's so strong in this. Haunter gets the Rift Herald buff. It's going to be there for so long, and Immortals is going to have to look for some serious outplay, and they're going to have to look for really delaying the game. They want to go late, scale up on Turtle so he can catch up, you know, get this Anivia going, and hope to just win in the late game fights.
Well, double Infernal Drake going to add to TSM's very snowbally approach to this game, although things have slowed down a bit because Immortals are, I think, like you've mentioned, correctly ceding territory at this point. See what other more damage TSM can do, though, is Double Lift currently pushing down this bottom side, but looks like it's time to back up and spend some of that gold and breathe reprieve. Yeah, respite even. We're done.
Why not both? But
Reprieve spite.
Yeah, there you go. But we do see that Double Lift, you know, he's probably going to be going into the Black Cleaver build. So he is still going that kind of build that had been so popular, the Ghostblade Black Cleaver. Wants to go for that mid-game spike, and Infernal Dragon is actually the most effective by far as teams with a lead. So as far as the win rates go, if you're already winning, this dragon is way better than all the other dragons. but in close games, they're all pretty close. So
And I feel like the Drakes might be listening to TSM.
yeah,
Because that's Infernal Drake number 3 coming up.
oh my god, that is
That
so
third
brutal
spawn.
for Immortals. That's honestly hard.
Oh, Bjergsen diving. Pobelta going to get chunked by the culling. Has the egg, but double lift just does not touch the stun. Immortals flashing forward. Rainover blows him away with the ulti. And now Bjergsen, caught out position, is going to pop the Hemo Plague down. Healing will get there once it procs. Bjergsen just need to stay alive. Huge amount of help from the pool. Sven dives in onto Rainover. Pobelta, though, trying to defend his tidal wave, comes in to push them away. Immortals still on the offensive. But looks like the fight disperses.
Yeah, great job there by Immortals. They pounce on the mistake from double lift. Pobelter catches him with the stun and no hesitation. You see Rainover flash forward, lands the ult. They go for the full combo. Pobelter flashing in for the ignite. They pick up a kill. It's a shutdown, and it does buy them some time. They need to keep looking for this. Huni, though, pretty far up. Always has to be aware of that Trundle pillar. It's going to be so hard to run away from him.
And Sven and Bifrost actually straight behind him. So we'll watch this one again.
Yeah, and
start.
Bjergsen is getting aggressive. He can afford to do this. He's very, very tanky. He's not too scared, but here comes double lift, and it's a great wall from Pobelter. Double lift doesn't want to flash, thinks he's out of range, but nope, it's too little too late. Rainover flashes in for the auto ult. Great job by Pobelter and Rainover capitalizing on double lift's mistake.
Yeah, Immortal still showing that even when behind, they know when to make the play. Double lift. Wasting that flash, unfortunately, but only
Yeah.
cost them 1 kill.
It does only cost them 1 kill, and they're still heavily ahead, especially when you consider the stat weight of the Drakes, as well as that third one. If they can get the third one, it's 24% ATAP. Ooh, that's scary.
Yeah, Monster and Rainover actually having a fight, but Rainover not afraid. Red Buffalo going to get stolen away once again by TSM. Continuing that control of the jungle. This is what Rainover's known for on the champion. Svenskeren showing that, hey, I've got a pretty good Rek'Sai as well.
He's doing great for himself. He's getting very tanky. Well, we talked about how much AD damage there is on Immortals. And, this is a Svenskeren who's just going to be building straight into the armor. He's not super concerned about Pobelter just yet.
Turtle, trouble? Does pop the ulti, keeps himself safe, but
Yeah, you can see the pings onto Rainover. They saw him there. They decided we don't want to commit, don't want to end up overextending, especially since Double Lift does not have the summoners after that mid lane skirmish.
yeah. Svenskeren, though, just clearing out some wards. Looks like TSM trying to crack the mid lane turret more than anything else. They do need a bit more room. Try and open up the map and see if they can't keep snowballing, but Pobelt has done a great job on the Anivia, keeping that turret alive for as long as possible. TSM, though, very vigilant about clearing wards out. Immortals, again, just buying time at this stage of the game, trying to make sure Huni and the rest of the squad can get going towards that mid game.
Pretty interesting to see Haunter go for the Titanic Hydra. This time we have been seeing Ravenous as pretty much the always option, but Bjergsen may be going for a dive here.
Diving
Rainover
onto
looking like he's gone.
Yeah, he's dead, I think. Rainover living for a little while, but Sven does finally take him out. Bjergsen still diving in, but Huni's actually made his way in. Sanguine pull out from the stun as Huni now the focus. Svenskeren knocks him up. Damage is there. The stun's good, but Sven going to get the double kill. Flashes out, but still dies to Turtle on the back end. That's going to be extra gold for that Sivir.
Bjergsen is just so aggressive on this Vladimir. He's gotten himself very ahead, and he is making it look easy. Probably going to be building into a Warmogs, I think.
They're going again, I think. Now this is the issue. Wall's in there, but Bjergsen's still going to fight it out. Tower getting low. Bjergsen with a Crimson Rush healing goes through. Pobelt to low. Does not get egged. Turret goes to TSM, though.
He's just ridiculously
crazy.
tanky. They can't push him off. They're too far behind as far as item pacing goes, and Bjergsen is just becoming an absolute monster. He just doesn't even care about the turret. He's just zoning them off it time and time again, allowing his team to get chip damage on it. And here we do have that dive. You can see Bjergsen just walking up, constantly threatening the dive, and now he sees his moment as Svenskeren comes in. They make the collapse. Bjergsen tanking up the turret. Rainover goes down, and so close to picking up Pobelter as well. But, in the end, the turret is going to fall. Svenskeren will trade his life, but it's a double kills for Sven, and it's multiple flashes to pick up that jungler's kill.
Yep, so definitely a worth trade there for Sven. As TSM continuing their aggression in this game. Immortals, though, doing a great job of damage control in this game. It's only 2,000 gold up still for TSM, which is a nice lead, but Immortals have sort of kept it at that position for a number of minutes now.
The big question, though, can Immortals contest this next Infernal? They cannot afford to go down 3 Infernal Drakes to none. They know that. They're hovering around here. They have their whole squad already in place. They really want to fight for this. And this is going to be a massive deciding point in this game.
Not sure TSM have had a chance to spend all their gold just yet, but definitely grouping around it to try and fight. like just Sven with a bit of extra gold in his back pockets.
Yeah, you know, Doublelift did just base. He's running back out there as fast as they can. Immortals is trying to rush it, though. If Doublelift gets here, he's going to be so strong.
Steal! Sven Skaren takes away the Drake, and Immortals book it.
That is heartbreaking for Immortals. Sven Skaren does not get zoned out. Immortals knew they couldn't fight. They tried to rush it, and Sven Skaren comes up huge for TSM.
Big play there as the Pillar's going to cut them off at the pass. Bubble there as well. TSM trying to buy time for this turret, but Minion Wave not cooperating. Immortals here to defend in time.
Just look at the AD carry itemization. Another
right.
dive coming in.
We're gonna
Bjergsen
dive
just
in.
doesn't care.
Bjergsen double ulti. Sven Skaren's going to egg Belter on the left-hand side. Bjergsen with a 1v2 takes out 2, and TSM explode under the turret.
Bjergsen is unstoppable in this game. 2 more kills for the mid laner, just destroying them. TSM wants the Baron.
And they're going to go straight for it. Triple Infernal Drake TSM. Going to try and take this Baron down, and Immortals are nowhere to be seen for the contest.
They're going to try something, I think, but they don't really have much chance. Wild Turtle, Adrian moving over. This is desperation time for Immortals. They don't want to give it up, but they cannot get through Bjergsen. There's no way.
Yeah, they're going to go for it. Bjergsen, a double lift onto Turtle. Turtle going to go down. Bjergsen flashes in for the ace with Tides of Blood.
The
There's the Baron as
delayed
well.
ace, Baron, 3 Infernal Dragons. Why not? TSM are making this one look easy.
11 and 2, but let's watch this beautiful dive again.
Yeah, watch the side fight here from Bjergsen. The 1v2 on Huni and Rainover. They cannot do enough damage to get through him. He's too fed. Pobelter in the meantime has gotten locked down. A nice CC chain from Biocross does land the bubble after the knockup from Sven. So fantastic fights on both sides, but Bjergsen is going off. This guy is unstoppable. And now he's going aggressive with his build, picks up the Rylai's, almost has his Zhonya's as well. I just do not see how they will ever be killing Bjergsen in this game.
Yeah, and TSM approaching 7,000 gold in the lead. 11-2 in kills, and now up 2 turrets with the Baron buff. Immortals were already playing on the back foot. This will be quite the storm to weather through this buff. But Immortals, if any team can do it, they're the ones that can hold on. But TSM, they're just not letting them breathe in this game.
No, they're not. And one of the toughest parts is that TSM is a great team to dive, right? We're showing how easy it is for them to just aggress under these turrets. It's not like they can't get in there and finish the game off, and I think they're going to be looking to do just that. TSM, smells blood in the water, and I think they want to finish the game. They're going to be looking for mid lane turret, and may go for the dive.
3-lane pressure right now. Pobelter getting zoned up by Sven. Going to join in as Rainover almost gets himself chunked by double. That's going to be a tower in mid going down. Immortals not here in time to defend. This inhibitor, are you going to give it up? Because TSM is going to take it if you let them.
There's no choice to fight now. Immortals has to give it up. They didn't fight at the turret. They can't fight for the inhibitor, but TSM is going top lane, and this may be where Immortals tries to make their stand, because I think if they don't, TSM's just going to end it.
Haunter bottom lane as well. So again, that's multiple lane pressure continuing for TSM. Plenty of Baron buff left to play with. Huni now just gets his teleport back up as well. Even Sven moving between the lanes, keeping the Baron empowered minions in. This is real tough for Immortals to defend right now.
So hard as Sven Skaren moving up here too. The minions are very tanky, especially this early in the game. Wild Turtle doesn't even have a second item completed. Rainover in trouble. Doublelift going aggressive.
Yeah, Anivia with the wall, and Doublelift says, all right, I'll just try and kill your mid laner, or jungler, sorry. As Huni is going to defend against Haunter, but Haunter is not particularly perturbed. Sven Skaren actually maybe threatening a dive. They'll go in for it. Ulti prompt. Huni is very squishy, and now Bjergsen's in as well. That'll force a flash out. Karma going to get him to safety. Adrian pops the exhaust as well, but TSM, they just do not stop.
Yeah, make it 2 inhibitors. Why not? And Bjergsen going up. Pobelter, he doesn't have egg.
Pobelter's dead. Doublelift takes him out. Rainover trying to get out from under Bjergsen, but Bjergsen just pops the ulti and chases them into their fountain. Bjergsen locked up, but he's just tanking 4 members on his own.
I think TSM could end it. We'll see if they're going to stay around. Super Minions are here, and they are looking to end this game 25 minutes in. TSM lays a beating on Immortals.
TSM going in to try and clean it up. The fight is starting. Wild Turtle gets blown up on the left-hand side, and the Nexus exposed. TSM looking for blood. Adrian gets popped. Immortals cannot defend. Huni melts in the eyes of TSM. Rainover, the last man standing. Immortals not this game. Rainover just lives to see his Nexus die. TSM with one hell of a game number 1.
Wow. That was a statement game if I have ever seen it. People saying, ooh, I don't know, team's looking close. TSM comes in here cleans up the game so fast. Every lane got smashed. The jungle advantage heavily in the favor of Svenskeren, and even with that disadvantage, and TSM looked incredible in game 1.
And what do we keep hearing? It's a new TSM. Strong players in every single lane. Great macro decisions around that. Have always been a good objective-focused team, but they're just not playing slow anymore. And that was one of the fastest games I think we've had. 26 minutes, and TSM destroy Immortals.
That's a tough one. I mean, you just have to, if you're Immortals, you got to forget about that game real quick. Do not think about that going forward. Everything went bad. Just erase it from your memory.
That's kind of the best way to describe that game, right? Like, everything just went wrong. Rainover had the early lead. It seemed like the lane swap was going decent for both teams, but at the end of the day...
I mean, the thing is, they got behind in disadvantageous matchups. They got behind in the advantageous matchup in the mid lane as well. And when every lane loses, what's Rainover going to do? He had an early advantage, but there's nowhere for him to go. Immortals just basically had to run around the map trying to avoid TSM as long as they could. And TSM took the fight to them. Super aggressive, fantastic play from them.
Certainly was. And we'll need to take a break, but there's some people that need a little bit more analysis. So let's hand it off to the desk to break down that decisive TSM victory.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Decisive, to say the least there. TSM looking fantastic in that first victory over Immortals to kick off the day. But this is even with kind of a rocky start, very initially at level 1, and that's what I want to dive right into, is the fact that Adrian and Wild Turtle were able rather to invade into that jungle, kind of put some damage down onto Sven, and disrupt the early lane swap from TSM, and yet the recovery happened.
Right, I think this is one of the most important points of the game, and it came very early on, but that level 1 put them behind in tempo, and when you're behind in tempo, you really need to do something to get out of that kind of rut, because if you just stay behind the whole game, you're going to lose. And here's what's really amazing by TSM. They realize they're behind in tempo. Immortals just finished their turret, and
this is the second turret take.
Yeah, this is the second turret take after they swap once, and TSM realizes that if they just finish this turret, Immortals is going to get this Infernal Dragon and start snowballing through the game, so they make a very intelligent decision to sack that turret. We don't need to finish it now. We'll get it some point later in the game. This Infernal Dragon is way more important. So TSM runs all the way across the map, leaving that turret up, and it's just one of the things where you see a lot of teams messing up the standard part of 2v1s, and then this is just an amazing adaptation,
there you
go, by TSM to just cut this dragon off, and then they even get rewarded with a kill from it because Immortals is just so like, oh god, they interrupt their dragon, let's recall and start trying to move around the map again, and then next thing you know, cut off and killed by Doublelift there for first blood.
First blood there for Doublelift.
I think one of the reasons why that worked so well is because Bjergsen had priority in mid lane, where Vlad was just kind of bullying Anivia around. Back when I was on TSM, when Reggie was coaching, he always would say that if you keep trading and playing evenly, you're just going to be slightly behind the whole game if you got behind. But that's an example of taking the tempo and just skipping steps and just like stopping the dragon.
Right, realizing, hey, we're behind in the second turret take, so we're going to skip that step. We're going to contest you here where you might not expect it. We're going to essentially re-increase the tempo on you. In a way that you're going to be caught off guard, and that kind of gets us back into the game.
Right, and I mean, Immortals reacts well too. I mean, they go topside with 4 later when TSM's taking the dragon to get, the second top inner turret. And that's another great play, because TSM actually read that and started recalling their bot lane before they finished the dragon to try and get there in time, and they're just a little bit too late. And it was the first 10 minutes of this game were just an incredible display of macro play by both teams, and TSM just coming out ahead.
Yeah, very much so. A little bit ahead. We also then saw TSM move to the top lane, a nice 2-0 dive plus a tier 2 turret there, and that kind of helped break the game open. But where things really fell apart was with a couple Infernal Drakes in their pocket, 21 minutes into the game, about mid lane, 3 for 0 plus the Baron. I mean, the work that Bjergsen does here off to the side, essentially 1v2, 1v3 if you include Adrian there, is nuts.
I mean, this is the power of Infernal Drake when you get ahead, and the Vladimir, who didn't get shut down. I mean, they gave Pobelter this kind of counter pick. I mean, they last picked the Anivia, and when you put that draft priority in a lane that's supposed to be, one of your strongest points on the map, and it's losing, especially with even Ignite as your summoner, so you can't even try and move around the map. You kind of put so many resources and it doesn't go anywhere, it's bad news.
I'm not even sure if that's a counter pick. I think Vladimir is just one of those champions that just wins every single matchup, except maybe Swain. But even then, like, if your mid laner can build full tank and still do a ton of damage,
Yeah.
like, where's the counterplay? Because he's
What's the world coming to?
I know, right? I mean, we have seen a couple other teams put out that Anivia opposite Vladimir and be successful with it in a few cases. But here, even Bjergsen coming out with a CS lead. In the isolated 1v1, he was still managing to, come out with a CS lead. So just demonstrating his mastery of that champion, and then with the Infernal Drakes on top of everything, just kind of skating through the rest of it. Now let's talk about what might happen in Game 2, because if you're on the side of Immortals, you might be a little bit fearful now. This was a more dominant game than even we expected. A lot of us looking at this would say there's going to be pretty even series. It's going to be super back and forth. It's going to come down to maybe a late game team fight. And yet TSM did just look cleaner, a little bit more together in this one. Once they had their slight advantage, they played it very, very clean.
Yeah, this was a bucket of cold water on the face in the morning, just to wake up, you guys got to start performing. But they're on blue side. Hopefully that frees up their bans. They can get some strong picks early, because I mean, even though the Vlad wasn't first picked, at least now they can see what TSM's done, and this is really why the best of 3 format's so important, because they have this chance to react as opposed to, just getting stomped in one game.
I don't really think Immortals would be scared at all. I think they'll be more than happy to adapt to whatever happened in that game and show what they got.
Well, they're going to have to adapt, and one of the players they're going to have to try to adapt to is Bjergsen, who gets our Player of the Game honors with the 3-0-7 performance on that Vladimir. We already hit it a little bit, but stellar performance out of him. Of course, he flips to the red side here, so he's going to have the option of a counter pick if he wants into Pobelter, which if I'm Pobelter again, I'm saying, oh, dear Lord, how do I, things just got harder for me, if anything.
If anything, it might have just been the champion itself. Maybe it's a thing where you just can't give away Vlad, and since they're playing against each other this week, they're not going to be scrimming against any mid laners on the level of Bjerg, so maybe Bjerg is on top of the meta and they're just learning just now.
All right, well, TSM out of the gate hard today. Don't touch that mouse, though, because when we come back, we've got more league action headed your way in just a few minutes. It's Game 2 between TSM and Immortals right after this.
Not a violent guy like you, Greg.
I don't beat up on random butts.
It's time for game number 1, TSM versus Immortals.
Another dive coming in.
We're gonna
Bjergsen
dive
just
in.
doesn't care.
Bjergsen double ulti, spins Kieran's gonna hang Belter on the left-hand side. Bjergsen with a 1v2, takes out 2, and TSM explode under the turret. Yeah, they're gonna go for a double lift onto Turtle. Turtle gonna go down. Bjergsen flushes in for the ace, but Tides of Blood. TSM looking for blood. Adrian gets popped. Immortals cannot defend. Hoonie melts in the eyes of TSM. TSM with one hell of a game number 1.